Good morning, philosophers. Hope you're well today. Let's continue with 50, 60, 78. Another point is that every pain leaves off altogether, or at least falls off in intensity from time to time. Moreover, one can guard against its arrival and employ drugs to forestall it just as it is coming on. For every pain, or at least every pain with a habit of regular reoccurrence, gives one advance warning of its coming. In illness, the suffering is always bearable so long as you refuse to be affected by the ultimate threat. So do not go out of your way to make your troubles any more tiresome than they are and burden yourself with fretting. Provided that one's thinking has not been adding anything to it, pain is a trivial sort of thing. If, by contrast, you start giving yourself encouragement, saying to yourself, quote, "It's nothing, or nothing much anyway, let's stick it out, it'll be over presently," then in thinking it a trivial matter, you will be ensuring that it actually is. Everything hangs on one's thinking. The love of power or money or luxurious living are not the only things which are guided by popular thinking. We take our cue from people's thinking even in the way we feel pain. A man is as unhappy as he has convinced himself he is. And complaining away about one's sufferings after they are over, you know the kind of language, "No one had ever been in such a bad state. The torments and hardships I endured. No one thought I would recover. The number of times I was given up for lost by the family. The number of times I was despaired of by the doctors. A man on the rack isn't torn with pain the way I was," is something I think should be banned. Even if all this is true, it is past history. What's the good of dragging up sufferings which are over, of being unhappy now just because you were then? What is more, doesn't everyone add a good deal to his tale of hardships and deceive himself as well in the matter? Besides, there is a pleasure in having succeeded in enduring something the actual enduring of which was very far from pleasant. When some trouble or other comes to an end, the natural thing is to be glad. There are two things, then: the recollecting of trouble in the past, as well as the fear of troubles to come. That I have to root out. The first is no longer of any concern to me, and the second has yet to be so. And when a man is in the grip of difficulties, he should say, quote, "There may be pleasure in the memory of even these events one day." That's what I often say about parenting. That's parenting advice there too. Like, there are moments in parenting where your kids are just enraging you. You know, they're destroying your stuff or, doing things you've asked them not to, breaking your stuff, fighting with each other. And in the moment, it just is so annoying and so enraging. And I tell people, one day, when your kids are out of the house and that is no longer in your life, you just might miss it a little bit. So that thinking about that helps you appreciate it more even in the moment. He should put his whole heart into the fight against them. If he gives way before them, he will lose the battle. If he exerts himself against them, he will win. What in fact most people do is pull down on their own heads what they should be holding up against. When something is in imminent danger of falling on you, the pressure of it bearing heavily on you, it will only move after you and become an even greater weight to support if you back away from it. If instead you stand your ground, willing yourself to resist, it will be forced back. Look at the amount of punishment that boxers and wrestlers take to the face and the body generally. They will put up none the less with any suffering in their desire for fame, and will undergo it all not merely in the course of fighting, but in preparing for their fights as well. Their training in itself constitutes suffering. Let us, too, overcome all things, with our reward consisting not in any wealth or garland, not in the trumpet calls for silence, for the ceremonial proclamation of our name, but in moral worth, in strength of spirit, in a peace that is won forever once in any contest fortune has been utterly defeated. Let me read that last bit again. Let us too overcome all things, with our reward consisting not in any wreath or garland, not in trumpet calls for silence for the ceremonial proclamation of our name, but in moral worth, in strength of spirit, in a peace that is won for ever once in any contest fortune has been utterly defeated. Quote, I'm suffering severe pain, you may say. Well, does it stop you suffering it if you endure it in a womanish fashion? Jeez. In the same way as the enemy can do far more damage to your army if it is in full retreat, every trouble that may come our way presses harder on the one who has turned tail and is giving ground. But it's really severe. Well, is courage only meant to enable us to bear up under what is not severe? Would you rather have an illness that's long drawn out or one that's short and quick? If it's a long one, it will have the odd interval, giving one opportunity for rallying, granting one a good deal of time free of it, having of necessity to pause in order to build up again. An illness that's swift and short will have one of two results, either oneself or it will be snuffed out. And what difference does it make whether I or it disappears? Either way, there's an end to the pain. Another thing which will help is to turn your mind to other thoughts, and that way get away from your suffering. Call to mind things which you have done that have been upright or courageous. Run over in your mind the finest parts that you have played, and cast your memory over the things you have most admired. This is a time for recollecting all those individuals of exceptional courage who have triumphed over pain. The man who steadily went on reading a book while he was having varicose veins cut out. The man who never stopped smiling under torture, albeit that this angered his tormentors into trying on him every instrument of cruelty they had. If pain has been conquered by a smile, will it not be conquered by reason? And here you may mention anything you care to name. Catarrh, a fit of uninterrupted coughing so violent that it brings up parts of the internal organs. Having one's very entrails seared by a fever. Thirst, having limbs wrenched in different directions with dislocation of the joints. Or, worse than these, being stretched on the rack or burnt alive, or subjected to the red-hot plates and instruments designed to reopen and deepen swelling wounds. There have been men who have undergone these experiences and never uttered a groan. Quote, he needs more. He hasn't asked for mercy. He needs more. He still hasn't answered. He needs more. He has actually smiled, and not forced to smile either. End quote. Surely pain is something you will want to smile at after this. But my illness has taken me away from my duties and won't allow me to achieve anything. Oh, sorry, that was a quote. Quote, but my illness has taken me away from my duties and won't allow me to achieve anything. Well, it's your body, not your mind as well. That is in the grip of ill health. It's your body, not your mind as well, that is in the grip of ill health. Hence, it may slow the feet of a runner and make the hands of a smith or cobbler less efficient, but if your mind is by habit of an active turn, you may still give instruction and advice. Listen and learn, inquire and remember. Besides, if you meet sickness in a sensible manner, do you really think you are achieving nothing? You will be demonstrating that even if one cannot always beat it, one can always bear an illness. There is room for heroism, I assure you, in bed as anywhere else. War and the battlefront are not the only spheres in which proof is to be had of a spirited and fearless character. A person's bravery is no less evident under the bedclothes. There is something it lies open to you to achieve, and that is making the fight with illness a good one. If its threats or importunities leave you quite unmoved, you are setting others a signal example. How much scope there would be for renown if, whenever we were sick, we had an audience of spectators. Be your own spectator anyway, your own applauding audience. Pleasures, moreover, are of two kinds. The physical pleasures are the ones which illness interferes with, though it does not do away with them altogether. Indeed, if you take a true view of the matter, they are actually sharpened by illness. A man deriving greater pleasure from drinking something when he is thirsty, and finding food all the more welcome through being hungry, anything set before one after one has had to fast being greeted with a heightened appetite. But no doctor can refuse his patient those other greater and surer pleasures, the pleasures of the mind and spirit. Anyone who follows these and genuinely knows them pays no attention whatever to all the enticements of the senses. Quote, "How very unfortunate he is," people say, "to be sick like that." Why? Because he isn't melting snow in his wine? Because he isn't breaking ice into a bumper goblet to keep the drink he has mixed in it chilled? Because Lucrine oysters aren't being opened before him at his table? Because there isn't any bustling of cooks about the dining room, bringing in not just the viands themselves, but the actual cooking apparatus along with them? For this is the latest innovation in luxurious living, having the kitchen accompany the dinner in to the table so as to prevent any of the food losing its heat, and avoiding anything being at temperature insufficiently scalding for palates, which are nowadays like leather. Quote, "How very unfortunate he is to be sick," they say. In fact, he'll be eating just as much as he'll digest. There won't be a whole boar lying somewhere where people can see it, conveying the impression that it has been banished from the table as being too cheap and ordinary a piece of meat to be on it. Nor will he have his trolley piled up high with, now that people think it not quite nice to see the whole bird, carved breast of fowl. And what's so bad about your being deprived of that? You may be eating like a sick man, but you'll at last be eating in the way a healthy man should. But, given one thing, we shall find it easy to put up with the potions and warm drinks and all the rest of it. All the things that seem unbearable to people who have become spoilt, who have become soft through a life of luxury, ailing more in the mind than they ever are in the body. The one requirement is that we cease to dread death. And so, we shall, as soon as we haven't learnt to distinguish the good things and the bad things in this world. Then and then only shall we stop being weary of living as well as scared of dying. For a life spent viewing all the variety, the majesty, the sublimity in things around us can never succumb to ennui. The feeling that one is tired of being, of existing, is usually the result of an idle and inactive leisure. Truth will never pall on someone who explores the world of nature, wearied as a person will be by spurious things. Moreover, even if death is on the way with a summons for him, though it come all too early, though it cut him off in the prime of life, he has experienced every reward that the very longest life can offer. Having gained extensive knowledge of the world we live in, having learnt that the time adds nothing to the finer things in life. Whereas any life must needs seem short to people who measure it in terms of pleasures, which through their empty nature are incapable of completeness, let these reflections promote your recovery, and meanwhile do find time for our correspondence. Time will bring us together again one of these days, and when, as it will, the reunion comes, however short it may last, knowing how to make the most of it will turn it into a long one. As Posidonius said, quote, "In a single day, there lies open to men of learning more than there ever does to the unenlightened in the longest of lifetimes." End quote. In the meantime, cling tooth and nail to the following rule: not to give in to adversity, never trust prosperity, and always take full note of Fortune's habit of behaving just as she pleases, treating her as if she were actually going to do everything it is in her power to do. Whatever you have been expecting for some time comes as less of a shock. All right. That was a really good chapter with some really powerful stuff in it. What are my thoughts today? My thoughts today are honestly on a conversation I had yesterday evening. I was inspired by a person. I mean, this is a rule I try and live every day of my life by, but it's sort of good to be reminded by seeing the same quality I strive for in other people. And the quality I'm talking about is actively seeking out challenges to one's belief. Not just holding a belief and waiting until somebody that wants to challenge it bumps into you, but actively seeking out challenges to one's positions and one's beliefs. Like, find people that are rational and calm and good thinkers that aren't going to be edgy or emotional or argumentative. Find those people that disagree with you on something. Find those people, find something they disagree with you on, and ask for that conversation. That's how we grow. That's how we learn and improve ourselves. And keep the thing and keep in line with that goal that I talk about. I want to believe as many true things as I can and as few false things as I can. That's how you do it. By actively seeking out those discussions, that new information that might prove you wrong. Go looking for it. Be eager for it. Ask for it. Hope for it. Hope for it. Hope. That's the thing. Hope for it. Hope that there's somebody out there that knows something that you don't, or that has an argument that defeats your position. If you maintain that hope and that willful seeking, I think you'll find a lot more wisdom while you're alive. And the closer you are, your perceptions and your positions are to reality, I think the better your life will be. The less conflict there will be because you're not fighting reality. You know what I mean? Anyway, those are my thoughts for today. Have a great day, guys.